It all started with a seemingly simple moment, a moment that in today's political climate is enough to set off an online wildfire. During an appearance on The Howard Stern Show, Ivanka Trump was caught off guard by an unexpected and provocative question from the veteran host. In his classic Stern style, blunt, unfiltered, and unapologetic, he asked Ivanka whether she had ever posed nude or would ever consider doing so. On the surface, it might have looked like just another instance of Stern's trademark shock jock humor, but the context made it far more explosive. Ivanka is not just a former fashion model and businesswoman. She is the daughter of Donald Trump, a former U.S. president and a man constantly at the center of political storms. Her image has been carefully curated over the years to project elegance, professionalism, and a controlled public persona. Stern's question crashed head-on into that image. The tension in the studio was palpable. Ivanka laughed it off with composure, redirecting the conversation while never giving Stern the satisfaction of a direct answer. But in the era of social media, it didn't matter how she responded in real time. Within hours, clips of the exchange were circulating across Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. What made the moment go viral wasn't just Stern's brashness, but the combination of factors: the family name, the suggestive nature of the question, the visual contrast between Ivanka's poised demeanor and Stern's provocative delivery. Comment sections exploded into a mix of shock, outrage, humor, and speculation. Some praised Ivanka for staying calm under pressure. Others criticized Stern for being inappropriate, and inevitably, partisan lines were drawn, with Trump supporters framing it as yet another example of media disrespect toward their family. From there, the clip took on a life of its own. Political commentators began weighing in, turning what could have been a fleeting entertainment segment into a talking point in the broader culture war. News outlets that normally wouldn't cover Stern's celebrity antics ran stories, often tying the moment back to Donald Trump's political career and the never-ending scrutiny surrounding his family. By the end of the week, the incident had evolved into something larger than a late-night shock jock stunt. It became a litmus test for how people view not just Ivanka, but the media's boundaries in the age of viral politics, and a preview of how even the most carefully managed public figures can be swept into controversy without warning. After the clip of Ivanka Trump's exchange with Howard Stern exploded online, the media machine went into overdrive. Major outlets across the political spectrum picked it up, each spinning the story to fit their own audience's worldview. On left-leaning platforms, the incident was framed as yet another example of how the Trump family courts the spotlight, but cries foul when that attention turns uncomfortable. Some commentators noted that Ivanka had willingly appeared on Stern's show, knowing full well his reputation for pushing boundaries, and argued that this moment was simply the inevitable result. Conservative media, however, took a very different angle. Right-wing commentators painted Stern as disrespectful and sexist, accusing the mainstream media of amplifying the moment to humiliate the former first daughter. They argued that if a similar question had been posed to the daughter of a Democrat politician, there would have been an outcry and calls for boycotts, but because it was a Trump, it became fair game. Meanwhile, the clip began spawning reaction videos and commentary segments on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. Some content creators analyzed Ivanka's body language frame by frame, praising her for not showing visible irritation. Others criticized her for not calling Stern out directly, saying her silence gave him a free pass. The political undercurrent became impossible to ignore. The story was no longer just about a provocative question on a radio show. It had transformed into a proxy battle for bigger debates: media bias, sexism, political double standards, and the fine line between public scrutiny and personal boundaries. By midweek, political talk shows had jumped in. Panelists debated whether Stern had crossed a line, whether Ivanka's reaction was appropriate, and, most importantly for the political world, what this meant for the Trump family's ongoing influence in the public sphere. Every take seemed to fuel more engagement, more outrage, and more polarization. It became clear that in 2025's media environment, no moment exists in isolation. A single question in a studio can ignite a national conversation, one that says as much about the country's political divides as it does about the person at the center of it. As the online chatter reached a fever pitch, the Trump camp decided it was time to push back. Close allies of the former president began using social media and sympathetic media outlets to reframe the narrative. First came Donald Trump Jr., who took to X, formerly Twitter, to accuse the media of manufacturing outrage over what he called a harmless decades-old interview. His post claimed that the real reason the story was resurfacing was because the left can't handle the idea of a Trump comeback in 2024 and will weaponize anything. Then came Eric Trump, who appeared on a conservative morning show to say that Howard Stern had always been obsessed with the Trump family and was using the moment to stay relevant. Eric framed the clip as a cheap stunt, a way for Stern and anti-Trump media to generate clicks at Ivanka's expense. Behind the scenes, several MAGA-aligned influencers started flooding their platforms with whataboutism posts, pointing to questionable or suggestive interviews involving the children of Democratic politicians. The strategy was clear: shift the focus away from Ivanka and toward perceived hypocrisy on the left. Donald Trump himself eventually weighed in on Truth Social. In classic Trump style, he blasted Stern as pathetic and accused the fake news media of trying to humiliate his daughter. His post racked up tens of thousands of likes and shares within hours, cementing the story's place in the day's political discourse. Interestingly, Ivanka remained silent. No official statement, no media appearances, no social media posts addressing the controversy directly. Whether this was a calculated PR choice or simply personal avoidance, it added a layer of intrigue. The silence allowed supporters and critics alike to project their own interpretations onto her. A vacuum of response that only fueled more speculation. By the end of the week, the Trump camp's counteroffensive had done two things: energized their base, who saw the incident as proof of media bias, and ensured that the story stayed alive far longer than it might have otherwise. In the fast-moving news cycle, that is both a risk and a calculated play. And for Trump, playing the long game on attention is nothing new. If the Trump camp thought their counterattack would completely shut down the controversy, they underestimated how quickly it had taken on a life of its own. By now, the story wasn't just about Trump, Stern, or Ivanka. It had become a broader conversation about boundaries, power, and the blurred lines between political figures and celebrity culture. On mainstream talk shows, panelists debated whether it was fair to dredge up old interviews in today's hyperpolarized climate. Some argued that if a public figure willingly participated in such conversations back then, it's legitimate for voters to reconsider their perception now. Others countered that the social norms of decades past were different, and applying modern outrage retroactively could be selective and politically motivated. Late-night comedians, never ones to miss an opportunity, began weaving the story into their monologues. Some took direct jabs at Trump, poking fun at his history of blending politics and entertainment. Others zeroed in on Howard Stern, portraying him as a relic from a more provocative shock jock era of broadcasting. The result? A media spectacle that transcended political affiliation. It was as much pop culture as it was politics. Online, the discourse splintered into countless directions. Progressive activists used the moment to highlight broader issues of misogyny and the sexualization of women in media, arguing that Ivanka's experience was part of a systemic pattern. Meanwhile, pro-Trump communities treated the story as yet another example of the liberal witch hunt narrative, doubling down on the idea that the establishment media feared Trump's return. What was particularly striking was how quickly the clip became a meme. TikTok users created satirical reenactments. Instagram accounts posted then and now comparisons of Trump's media moments. On YouTube, political commentary channels dissected the interview frame by frame, overlaying it with their own spin. By midweek, the controversy had seeped into unexpected corners of the internet, from parenting blogs discussing how political families shield or don't shield their children from public life, to celebrity gossip forums debating whether Ivanka's silence was a sign of strength or strategic retreat. The cultural ripple effect was undeniable. A decades-old piece of broadcast history had been reframed, repackaged, and repurposed to fit the narratives of 2025. Whether people saw it as a genuine moral issue, a political weapon, or just another viral distraction, the clip had crossed from niche scandal into the realm of collective conversation. And it wasn't fading anytime soon. By the end of the week, the storm surrounding the resurfaced Trump-Howard Stern interview had settled into a strange rhythm. It wasn't dominating every headline, but it wasn't disappearing either. It lingered like an unresolved chord, the kind that keeps playing in the background even when the main song has ended. Trump himself didn't help matters by continuing to bring it up on Truth Social, alternating between dismissing the controversy as a nothing burger and accusing the media of weaponizing ancient jokes to derail his political momentum. The constant back and forth ensured the story never fully dropped out of the public conversation. Meanwhile, Howard Stern offered a measured response on his own show, neither apologizing nor doubling down. He acknowledged that the tone of his old broadcasts wouldn't fly under today's standards, but he also reminded listeners that the interview took place in a completely different media era. "You can hate me, you can love me, but don't pretend you don't understand the context," he quipped, his voice carrying the same sardonic edge that made him famous. As for Ivanka Trump, her silence remained the most intriguing element of the entire episode. No statement, no social media post, no off-the-record leak to friendly outlets. For some observers, this was a sign of strategic brilliance, refusing to fuel the story any further. For others, it was an unsettling reminder of how little agency political families sometimes have over their own narratives. Political analysts began to speculate about the longer-term effects. Would the resurfaced clip erode Trump's standing among suburban women, a key demographic he's been trying to court? Or would it have the opposite effect, reinforcing his brand as the brash, unapologetic figure who refuses to play by Washington's rules? Beyond electoral calculus, the incident prompted a broader conversation about the digital age's ability to resurrect and reframe the past. In 2025, nothing truly disappears. A single clip from decades ago can be pulled into the present, stripped of its original context, and made to serve entirely new political purposes. And that, perhaps, is the most lasting consequence of this entire affair. It's not just about Trump or Stern or Ivanka, it's about the reality that public figures now live in a state of permanent vulnerability. Every word, every laugh, every offhand remark is archived, searchable, and one click away from becoming the next viral outrage. For Trump's supporters, this is proof of a hostile media ecosystem out to destroy him. For his critics, it's a reminder of the character flaws they've been pointing to for years. For the rest of America, it's just another week in the never-ending collision between politics, celebrity, and the internet. A CE